Hey, Richard Myers here. Again, thank you for joining me. I wanted to bring perspective to your thinking. God has a plan, and with God, one day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is one day. God has a plan. I just want to point out to you that in this plan of God, there is process. And I want to point out that the incarnation, the coming of Jesus Christ to a manger in Bethlehem, and all that issued forth from that was a process that took 100 years. Think about it. Jesus was born in BC 6 or thereabouts, but he was born a few years BC. And his ministry, when he was 30 to 33 years old, 4 years of ministry. And then the New Testament, Paul's ministry is about 30 years. And then the Apostle John, who wrote in the New Testament the final book, the book of Revelation, was at the end of the first century. So about 100 years, that process. So if you're inside of that process, you didn't have a New Testament. It was being formulated, it was being written, it was being inspired. And there was a lot of loose ends that were hard to understand because we're in the middle of the process, not the end of it. Now, we have the advantage point of 2,000 years to look back on those events, and sometimes we compress them to, a few days or a few years. But think about it, it was 100 years. In our current situation, where God, I think, wrapping up, He's bringing everything to a conclusion in preparation for the millennial kingdom. This event has unfolded, the process has unfolded about 100 years. If you were to kind of study Zionism, Zionism is the idea that the land in which Israel is now, the Jews are now, have their state, belong to the Jews by grant of God. Zionism believes that, and that the Jews are in the land today as a regathering and in preparation for the millennial kingdom. You could study it, Google it, Zionism, and the process then of God wrapping all of this up. It's about 100 years. If you look at the beginning of Zionism, some of the events that took place late 1800s, early before the 1900s. And then, of course, Israel came into existence formally by United Nations decree in 1948. And then we had all of the different certifications of God, that God protected Israel. God expanded. They took over Jerusalem. And now today they're expanding their territory to Judea and Samaria, which really is the heart of Israel. And the satanic religion of Islam wants to take away the heart and destroy the Jews. And the heart of this Holy Land, if you will, is Judea and Samaria, which is wrongly called, or by Satan is called, the West Bank. And so I just wanted you to give you perspective when you get in a hurry for things to compress together. God has a process, and this process unfolds. And the unfolding of the process sometimes is greater than the lifespan of any one individual. In the process, then, you have to be careful because you're in the process. And the conclusions, the wrapping up, the events that God is bringing about aren't clear yet because you're in the process. Just some thoughts to help you kind of understand what we're going through today and how to understand what God is doing. Hey, thank you for joining me.